EMS Authority, Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue, and Western Lane Ambulance District. Would you rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to
the flag
Flag
United
of the United States of America,
America,
and
to
to
the
the
republic
republic for which it stands,
under
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you. Mary, can you do roll call, please?
Yes, Western Lane Ambulance Director, Director Russell.
Here.
Director Murphy,
here.
Director Holbrook, Director Buss,
Here.
and Director Webb.
Here.
Siuslaw Valley Fire, Director Mandolia,
Here.
Director Heppel,
Present.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Polisi,
Here.
and Director Spade.
Here.
WLFEA Directors, Director Webb,
Here.
Director Murphy,
Here.
Director Polisi,
Here.
and Director Spade.
Here.
Okay, we do have quorum. One thing we wanted to add tonight was, I mean, as many of you know, or I think everybody knows, we lost a member of the WLFEA family, Sarah Sussman, part-time EMT with Western Lane Ambulance District. And originally we had asked Paramedic Captain Derek Mullins to say a few words. Unfortunately, he's on a transfer right now to Eugene. So Matt's going to fill in and say a few words about Sarah.
Thanks, Chief. It's very hard to imagine that just 3 years ago, we lost one of our family members to the agency. Sarah was truly an amazing young lady. She was very talented beyond her years, compassionate, had impeccable provider skills to her patients. Sarah was dedicated to her professions of fire and EMS and just demonstrated this in all aspects of her life, volunteering with Lowell Fire District, working part-time with Mid-Valley Ambulance, working part-time with Westland Ambulance, and recently was hired on in the ER at Riverbend as an ER tech. All this underlining motivation was a drive of her to be aspiring to be a physician. All of the personnel have wonderful stories working alongside of Sarah, and all of our personnel are hurting by the loss of an amazing person with unbelievable scene potential. A true example of character and integrity our district strive to. So I ask everybody, please join me in a moment of silence to pay tribute to this amazing lady.
Thank you, Matt. Those are certainly a shock for all of us. And I appreciate all the outpouring of support from not only directors, but all our neighboring agencies. It's been quite amazing to see. Mary, can you show Dr. Holbrook's here in the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll go to, we have two citizens signed up to speak. Get the timer going here. Mr. Pilcher, you signed up first. You can go anytime. Mr.
RJ,
Pilcher?
you're muted.
Thank you. I would like to say how heartbreaking the sudden death of Sarah Sussman is, and I would like to convey my sincere condolences to family, friends, and coworkers. My thoughts and prayers are with all of you. Though I did not know Sarah, from what I've read about her, the world was a much better place by having her in it. Thank you.
Thanks, RJ.
Thank you, RJ. Mr. Farnsworth, you're up second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for that wonderful tribute to Sarah. Sarah's passing is quite tragic, and Crystal and I extend our prayers, our sincere condolences to her parents, her family, and to her colleagues. Clearly, any passing like this is tragic, particularly so when we see a young person who is such a shining star and who has already demonstrated such a great potential to serve others. In times like these, we seek God's blessing for all who loved her. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for those very kind words. We appreciate it. So earlier this week, we had a retirement from SVFR. I think I had sent that out. Hopefully I notified the directors, but we had planned on making a presentation to Liz Ivicello tonight at the board meeting, but unfortunately she's working and she wasn't sure. She works at the Peace Harbor Hospital in the ER, and they are so slammed. Dr. Holbrook can attest to that. She wasn't sure she was going to be able to attend. So we did a presentation the other morning and we recorded it, and the recording is just horrible. I was going to play it tonight. So we're not going to play that recording, but I think I just wanted to maybe just go over what the speech that I gave for her, and then we awarded her or gave her a plaque. We will have an open house in October. We planned it for October 18th. So as we get more information on that, as we get closer to the date, I'll make sure everybody's notified. I think most of you know Liz, or if you don't, come and meet her. She's a fantastic person, and she's been a big part of SVFR for 18 years. So this is what I said at her recognition ceremony. It gives me a great amount of pleasure to recognize Captain Liz Ivicello for her 18 years of dedicated service to Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue. It is so rare these days to have a volunteer stick around and to be as productive as Liz has been for us for so many years. From her role as a captain, her work as an elected representative for the Firefighters Association, to her role as a duty chief, Captain Liz represents everything a fire chief could ask for in a volunteer or employee, and a level of experience and dedication that will be hard to replace. She's put the district first in her life so many times, and I sincerely hope that she enjoys her retirement away from the fire department. I'm pleased to announce that Liz will continue with Western Lane Ambulance District as an EMT, so luckily we haven't seen the last of her yet. With that said, Liz, I'd like to present you with this plaque and personally thank you on behalf of the directors, staff, employees, and volunteers of Western Lane Ambulance District, Siuslaw Valley Fire and Rescue, and the Western Lane Fire and EMS Authority for all you have done. And we had a great showing for friends and fellow firefighters and medics here, and I'll try and see if we can clean up that video. It was a very nice ceremony, and I'll either send it out or post it on our website. And I think Adina, she sent us a thank you letter. I think you wanted to read as well.
Got a little thank you card, and I'll read it for you. To all board members, I can't thank you enough for supporting my last 18 and a half years, what may have been the best job ever. Thanks for the opportunity to provide so much to our community and surrounding areas. I am honored and blessed to have been a member of this team. Again, thank you. Captain Ivicello, retired.
Thanks, Dan. So we'll go on to the consent agenda. Would anybody like anything removed from the consent agenda and placed on the agenda? Hearing nothing. Consent agenda consisting of meeting minutes from August 26th, 2021, staff reports and correspondence is accepted. And we had a request last board meeting to maybe highlight call volumes. So Matt's going to give it a shot. He certainly knows our call volume best. But if any of the directors want to see something different or a different format, just let us know. We can do that. But Matt, give it a shot. You're muted.
Stupid mute button. So yeah, in August, the EMS continues to run higher call volumes than normal. We ran over 422 calls, which is the second month in a row that we went over 400, which is the first time David Rossi or myself or anybody else in the organization's ever seen that. In fact, it's kind of comical because David goes, my first year working here at Western Lane Ambulance, we never ran 400 calls in a year. So it's kind of puts it in perspective on how much we've grown in David's career. 149 total calls over what was from last fiscal year to this year, and 50 calls comparing August to August from last year to this year. There's significant more transports that we're doing in facility transfers. There was 11 more compared to last year. And overall this year, we're up about 61 for transfers and 6 for critical care transfers. COVID has played a factor into it. Recent spikes and unfortunate numbers increasing. So that has played a role with our interfacility transfers as well as scene calls. We are seeing that number decline now, thankfully. On the fire side, our call volume was at a total for last month, 352, of which were fire related. And that goes from forest fires to brush fires to structure fires. And then 212 general rescue, rescue and EMS calls. And then general service was 110 calls. That's all in the board packet. I love talking about it. I would really like some more guidance, like Chief said. If this isn't meeting what you guys would like, or if you like different data points, I'd be happy to make sure that I get those next board packet. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Matt. That's exactly what I was hoping for.
Good. I think I'm gonna be working with Silas News to see if we can make the call data we put in there a little bit more informative for citizens as well. Okay, moving on, monthly financials.
Okay, directors, I put in your board packet an agenda bill that talks about reducing the quantity of financial reports in the board packet. And there's also a list of all and descriptions of all the financial reports, who gets them and what they mean. For this board packet, it takes up 30 pages. I'm okay with that. If the board would like to continue with all of these reports, I'm happy to keep them going in the board packet. But my suggestion is to keep the balance sheet and the budget versus actual for all 3 entities in the board packet, as well as the 2 systems design reports we have for Western Lane Ambulance. The others, the transaction list, credit card statements, in my opinion, they could be reviewed by the secretary treasurer of each board on a monthly basis with the bank statements, or another board member if the secretary treasurer cannot come in once a month. And I can run profit and loss previous year comparisons quarterly. And I can run the life med analysis report at the end of a 365-day cycle to show whether life med has a profit or loss at the end of 12 months. So I'll open it up for the board to discuss. I'm willing to do whatever the board decides they want.
Mr. Murphy.
I would prefer to leave them as is for right now, until we all meet and we discuss how we're going to go about expanding our IGA, and we come to an agreement on what reports is going to be shown for each district and how we're going to go about it. I'd like to do it all at one time.
Thanks, John. Other comments?
Sam has his
Ditto.
hand up.
I got my hand.
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
I like the idea that Dina's got there, just to reduce the amount of paperwork that we get every month. I think that the secretary treasurer of each one of the agencies should somehow certify that they have reviewed it and it's okay, so that that's in the packet and we know that it has been reviewed by somebody that's on the board.
Okay, Director Webb, you're muted. There you go.
I would be on board with John. I think that the things like the transaction list are something that we should be seeing, or at least have in our board packet so the public can see it. Oh, I would agree with him, at least until we get the final resolution of where we're going with our future reporting.
Thank you, Mike. Director Russell.
I would like to see it stay the same. We had a lot of those things put in place because we didn't know where our money was going. I'm still a little burned on that and still want to know exactly where the money's going. And until I agree with John, until we have decided how we're going to show our reports as we move forward, we just leave it the same for now.
So I think the consensus is to leave them as is, and we can certainly do that. And if a director wants to bring it up in the future, we can certainly discuss it at that point. So any questions on the monthly financials for Dina? Okay, thank you. Old business. So we brought back the proposal from the Terrell Group. There was a lot of extra material in their original proposal. So we just wanted to clean that up. There were a couple typos. They spelled ambulance with a K, things like that. So we cleaned it up, and we would like Western Lane Ambulance District to approve the revised Terrell Group proposal. It doesn't change the cost. It doesn't change what we want to get done, but it's just a much cleaner proposal. So we'll entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Moved by Director Webb. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Director Russell. And discussion. Hearing none. Mary, can you do a Western Lane Ambulance District Director roll call vote?
Yes. Director Russell,
Yes.
Director Murphy,
Yes.
Director Holbrook,
Yes.
Director Buss,
Yes.
and Director Webb.
Yes.
Thank you. So next action item is to return to our AccuVein finder purchase. Matt, I think you were going to talk to the directors about that.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go out on the record and say this is not my fault, but if it was my fault, I would own it, absolutely. However, when we went to go submit payment for the previous board approved AccuVein from last month, and the cost of that was $15,800. The lady that we were working with and the representative grossly made an error on how it's supposed to be broken down. And in the agenda item, I tried to do the best I could to explain that and how the error occurred. But the end result of it is that we're roughly about $7,000 off on that we would need in order to do a capital replacement on this. So in summary, I've given two options like I always try to do. Option number one is that this trade-in value with the 3 old AccuVein finders with the price of $3,900 per unit, it's $11,700, and the 2 new units is $5,500 per each, which totals to $22,875, and that's been the corrected revised version. And the option 2 is 3 trade-in units, which has always been on the table for that discounted price of $3,900 for $11,700, and then 1 additional of $5,500. And then that just means that it leaves one of our ambulances short of this piece of equipment to find veins and do patient care. So my recommendation, we definitely have the room in capital, and an unfortunate oversight did occur on AccuVein. My recommendation is option 1. I'm out here for discussion. If you have other suggestions or direction, I'm happy to listen to them, of course.
If
Is it worth
there,
Is it
Go ahead,
worth it to have it in every ambulance?
It makes life a lot easier. If we have 4 and not 5, meaning that, okay, which vehicle doesn't have it? And if we did have 5 ambulances out, which is a growing possibility in our call volume, then and we did need it, it could be that ambulance that doesn't have it. And this piece of equipment, when it's used because you can't palpate a vein, can't find a vein, and it's infrared technology that illuminates the vein and makes it easier to find a vein. And essentially, you're doing like a blind stick. Those in the medical field, if that encapsulates it, I mean, that's the best analogy of what this device does. And we do run into sometimes patients with comorbid factors, really bad veins, or even IV drug users is another reason why we've used it. So answering the question, it would make it absolutely best in operations if everything was the same across all ambulances. If we do have that one variable, we have to plan and educate, train to that variable down the line.
Then I would move for option 1.
Is there a second?
I have a question.
Dr. Spade was, never mind.
This is just Western Lane directors, but Director Mendolia, go ahead with your question.
I understand, I'm sorry. How often do these break? If you're down one and then another one breaks, now you're down 2, is that a common occurrence with these?
So these are out of date, out of service, end of life, where we can't get them replaced to the current ones. So we're replacing up to the next level.
But the new ones?
Yeah, the new ones, we haven't heard anything about them, having to go and repair every 6 months. I can speak to the old technology. We very seldom had to send them in for repair. And it's usually somewhat related to worker error. Oops, I dropped it, darn it. Something along those lines. And that's just part of our job that it happens.
Okay, thank you.
Murphy to second Mike Webb's motion.
Okay, Director Spade, is your hand still up or is that from before?
No, I took it down, but I did want to add that I think even though one night before this happened that I spoke for the ambulance district only because I had an input I thought was pertinent to the discussion. So, and you said that was okay to do that. So
Yes.
my question was that why don't we go ahead if we got 5 ambulances, you got one that doesn't have it. I mean, you don't know which ambulance that is. That may be the ambulance that needs it. And have that extra question in there all the time. So I think that I ought to go for 5 only because that gives you standard across the whole ambulance fleet. My input.
Thank you, Sam. Director Hempel, your hand is up.
I would be in support of this. I've used these over at Peace Health. They are very hardy. We used them for the neonatal transport team. I'm in love with them. They go for every age group. They can go for neonates, pediatric, adults, and very skinny little veins. I use them a lot, and I can appreciate the fact that that the group is wanting them, and I would be in support of it.
Why don't they have those at the blood clinic?
You just need to drink more.
Water, drink water.
Water.
Okay, any more comments? So we have a motion to approve option 1 at 22,875. It's been moved and seconded. Mary, can you do a roll call vote for Western Lane Ambulance District?
Yes. Director Russell,
Yes.
Director Murphy,
Yes.
Director Holbrook,
Yes.
Director Buss,
Yes.
and Director Webb.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. So on this next action item was to look at a policy, but I think Director Webb, you wanted to make a motion first.
I think there's some things within this policy that we might want to table and carry on at a later discussion, particularly after we make a decision on where we're going with WLFEA.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, it's a motion. Table
there's-
this to a future meeting.
There's a motion to table old business item 8C. Is there a second?
Murphy,
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, we'll table that. There is no new business. Let me turn over my agenda. Director comments. We're getting very good with raising our hands, so. Director Burns.
Yeah, the only thing is to remind everybody about Saturday's, Chief, as far as that Wohink.
Yes, Wohink, the covered picnic area. I don't know the area myself, but that's what it says, 11 to 3. Firefighter Association is hosting a picnic for everybody.
Yeah, for you, Chief Schick, you need to go down to Silkus Outlet and turn left. No. Anybody who knows what I'm sending you on a wild goose chase,
Yeah.
Chief.
I was born at night, but not last night.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Burns. You're done. Okay, Director Spade.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I apologize for not making the training meeting last week. I thought that was really a good session. I did look at the video afterwards and saw it, but unfortunately I had to go to California for a funeral, so I couldn't make it. But one of the things that I had, questions I had after watching that video was so much of the training session was conducted considering a college consolidation or merger between the two units. And the question I have, and I keep going back to, is the elephant in the room. Before we make that decision about consolidating or merging those two agencies would be the discussion that we've had off and on about privatizing the ambulance service. I know that's something that people kind of go, oh, we don't want to talk about that. But I think it's pertinent that we talk about that because there are issues have come up to the public. I've been asked about that from the public myself, about if we considered that, is that a consideration? And I think for both boards, that consideration should be before we decide the merger, because if we do go ahead and do the merger, then I think that would complicate trying to privatize the ambulance service. So I'm just throwing that out there. I think that the decisions that we're making right now and the decisions the discussion I saw from the meeting last week was more along like you're in the fourth inning of the baseball game and we're still in the first inning trying to figure out who's up at bat. And we're starting to make decisions about roles and stuff that are way downstream, that we need to make those basic first decisions about what direction we really want to go with this operation. And I think that first one is, do we want to keep the ambulance service as it is now or change it and privatize that? I don't know anything about private ambulance services, and I don't know, maybe you do, but if you do, then I would appreciate sharing that with me, because I would like to make an intelligent decision about which way to go, and I don't have the information to make that decision right now.
Well, good question, Sam. Yeah, absolutely. We can get you some information. Director Webb.
Yeah, I'll kind of wing it just a little bit and address a little bit of what Sam's talking about, because it is a question. We've often brought this one up in strategic planning sessions, and it's an option. Western Lane has the ASA, or the assigned service area. So if we were to choose to privatize or to convert to a for-profit, what we would likely do is just subcontract the ambulance service portion. The tax district would remain. We would still have a PERS liability. But what would we be giving up if we did that? A for-profit doesn't invest their money back into the district. The for-profit is for-profit. The profits go back to the company. They're also not managed or controlled locally, so you lose the local control over that. There's a district to the north that in 2020, it's mostly private. There's one, Yachats is publicly served, and they had 100%, Yachats had 100% compliance with call time response. The rest of the district drug it down to under 80% in 2020. Our district responded in compliance 98% of the time last year. Now, we might staff a little bit more when we go public, but the way calls happen in Florence, calls happen all in a cluster, and we've run into problems when we were too short-staffed and we didn't have enough people to respond. Where are we going to get help from? If you were a private provider, where are you pulling your extras from? You're having to pull them from Coos Bay or Eugene or Lincoln County. So that could really hamper how we serve the people of the district. And then you start thinking about the upriver. If they're reliant upon the fire departments, the purely volunteer fire departments that we have in Swiss Home, Deadwood, and Mapleton, they're in a world of hurt if we don't have a well-staffed public response. And for-profits are for-profit. There's nothing wrong with the quality of care they have, but they're for-profit. They're not likely going to spend money on things like what we just spent money on. They're probably going to have older equipment and greener employees. They also don't have the critical care training that we have, and that's something that Peace Health requires at certain levels, and Cindy can enlighten us, and maybe Dr. Holbrook, at certain levels of transports, that they have to have a critical care paramedic on board. Otherwise, we're not allowed to transport them. We invested in those so that we could do it. That helps offset some of the costs within the district. but it's also a quality service. These, our employees are very, very well trained because of this. All in all, we pay 7% of our tax bill combined between the operating levy and the base tax for ambulance service in this community. So for the average house, it's under $200 a year. Just to have an ambulance ready. And then they get billed for service, but we're billing for services was evidenced in some of the ads that have been out there. Medicare only reimburses, what, a quarter of the billing? So how would a for-profit mitigate that? What are they going to charge for to overcome that? Are they going to charge for lift assists and typical things that we don't charge for? Are they going to get the support from the fire department? And if the fire department has to pick up the slack, where's their budget dollars to do that? It's a real challenge to convert the model to something like that. And I don't think it's a good service for our community. If the community told us that they weren't willing to fund the operation that we have, perhaps we would have to look at the quality of the operation and see what we're doing wrong. But if the community continues to think that we're offering a good value, which our recent survey said we're at, what, 77%, I don't see a reason to change. However, this is something that when we get into strategic planning, this is an option that we should look at. Are we in need of doing that because we're at a budget crisis? That might be a reason to do it. But as long as the people of the community are getting the service that we provide and we're able to control it at the level we are and provide the quality we are, I would support a public option all the way. Find better ways that we can provide more service. I don't want to cut back on service to the community. So that's where I stand. And I think we can have more intelligent discussions in person when we get down to strategic planning. So, thanks.
Thank you, Director Webb. Director Polisi, you had your hand up or did you put it down?
Oh, no, I've got it up again. Sorry
Okay.
about that. Good evening, everyone. In reading tonight's 2021 legislative update, there were some House bills and Senate bills that could potentially impact the fire district and the EMS district. I don't know what direction they're going to go. I do see some redistricting of state services and everything's going to flow downhill eventually. In that, Chief Schick, there's one item in particular about rural fire protection districts that we could potentially end up taking over some areas, given how they decide this mapping area. I think it's a little too early to tell what direction it's going to go, but it's definitely coming. And I think that this is part of regionalization. That's just my guesstimate. I do know that there are many departments along the entire West Coast, not just Oregon and Washington and California, but even a little bit inland to the coast that are looking at regionalizing. And it's something that we really need to take to heart, what we're going to do for us being isolated. I will keep track of this. And Chief Schick, I think you and I should probably sit down with Tony because of some changes coming from the Office of State Fire Marshal. And my second point is that I want to talk about the supporting the fire district supporting this upcoming vote to continue the levy. I believe it's important. Talk about strategic plan. Yes, absolutely. But we cannot be in a position to where we're not supporting our partner. And with that, I would like to have a motion that we, as the Siuslaw Valley Fire Protection District, support the Western Lane Ambulance District's upcoming continuation of the current levy.
Is there a second from SVFR?
Second.
Second by Director Burns. Any further discussion? So the motion is to support Western Lane Ambulance District local option levy renewal, correct, Jim?
Correct.
Okay. Mary, can you do a roll call vote for SVFR directors?
Yes, Director Mendolia,
Yes.
Director Heppel,
Yes.
Director Burns,
Yes.
Director Polisi,
Yes.
and Director Spade.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Certainly. Director Spade, is your hand up again?
Yes, it is. I just wanted to say to Director Webb, thanks for the information you gave there, Mike. I didn't know a lot of that stuff, and I think a lot of the other directors probably don't know the historical background that you have to be able to add to the discussion. But I'm starting to get questions from the general public about privatizing the ambulance service, and I didn't know what to say in response to that. And I think that information sheet to that respect to the directors of both boards would be helpful when those questions start to come up, and possibly even some discussion in the public forum about that also. I think is very important.
Oh, thank you for bringing that to the table here too, Sam. I think it is important for everyone. So I saw a hand waving at me. Who was that? Was that? Oh, there, Director Russell.
My hand doesn't work on the computer. It's just a thumbs up.
It's because it's your husband's computer.
Yeah. First, I wanted to speak to Sam, Director Spade, and say that I worked shoulder to shoulder with this district and also with private districts. There is a huge, huge difference in care that the patient receives. I can speak to that much better than I can speak to the history that Mike spoke to. I have seen where the private ambulances come in to transport a critical patient, and they're like deer in the headlights when you talk to them about the different drugs that we have running on the patients. And I've even stopped a transport because I did not feel safe putting that patient in the hands of a private ambulance service. I have never felt that way putting my patients into the hands of the Western Lane Ambulance District employees. I have utmost confidence in what they're doing. And I feel that if we did go private, then you would be looking at a lot more transports that are going to be having to go by air. And also they're going to have to sit in our ER much longer because they won't be able to go out by air, because as you well know as a pilot, that there's many times that the weather is so bad that we can't get anything in here. So they would have to sit in our ER. Our ER is only 9 beds. And they need to get to higher level of care for a reason. And just for the cost of flying a patient out of here is life altering because of the cost. I believe the last I heard it was over $50,000 just to get onto either the helicopter or the fixed wing. So that's a big consideration when you look at what they're paying in taxes for us, which, by the way, has not increased since 2012. That's a good reason right there to me. I would not feel comfortable putting them into a private ambulance's hands. So that's all I have to say on that. But I do also want to follow along with Director Polisi and request a motion for our board, Western Lane Ambulance, to support the levy. Remembering that the key points of it is that, as I mentioned, we have not had an increase in our requests for taxes. This is just a continuation of the levy, which was established in 2012. Our call volume has increased over 50% since that time, and we've increased the education and the abilities of our crew members to the point that we can do these critical care transports. And I would like to have a motion to support the levy as it stands on the ballot.
So is there a motion to do what Cindy just requested? Or do you want to make that as a motion, Cindy?
I'll make it as a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I would second that, but I want a discussion real quick. Are we stepping into grounds that we are allowed to do? If we just make the statement as a board, are we okay with that?
Yes. According to our attorney, you can do that.
Okay.
Not to be the devil's advocate, but it sounds kind of redundant. We know we're in support of it. We put it on the ballot.
I wanted to show that all the board members or which board members are in support of it.
Any further discussion? Okay, Mary, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Director Russell,
Yes,
Director Murphy,
Yes.
Director Holbrook,
Yes.
Director Buss,
Yes.
Director Webb.
Yes.
Okay, director comments still.
I'd like to finish out my comments. Thank you for the vote. With my condolences to the staff, the crews, and the family of Sarah. I understand that Ali came upon the wreck at the time, just moments after it occurred. And I'm sure it's very difficult for him and all the crews. And on a lighter note, I want to give my congratulations to Liz for her years of service. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Director Russell. Director Buss.
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge the conversations with Mike and Sam and the concerns. As a lay person and not being immersed in these types of conversations around what our services we provide for Western Lane Ambulance District, I would really like us to provide our public with something that's very lay person, that I can understand the differences between a private and what they're paying for currently. I think that's really vital because I was completely ignorant of the differences in those two options. And I think people only sometimes hear that we're saving money, but they're not understanding what saving money means to them when they call 911 and an ambulance is dispatched to their home. And I think in our community, that's very significant and important for us to clearly understand that, and our community understands that, and we can articulate that very, very well. So I would really like to see us put a flyer or something together where it breaks it down for people like myself to clearly understand it and to have that conversation with our community.
Thank you, Vanessa. Director, well, just a second, then I'll get to you, John. It's interesting, we had actually a speaker lined up for tonight. So we've been talking with Jeff Griffin. He's executive director for the Oregon Fire Chiefs, and he was going to either himself or bring somebody in to talk about privatization. It looks like we should have done that, but yeah, we can definitely get you some information on that. Director Murphy, go ahead. You're muted, John. John, you're
I think we should let our fellow board members vote that we're trying to support our levy a while ago. We kind of interrupted them and didn't let them vote.
Oh, I thought we finished the vote. I had 5 yes votes.
Oh, okay. Might have been
Did I
when I
miss-
had no help.
Did I miss somebody, Mary?
No, everybody agreed.
I think it was all
Did
5.
a roll call and everybody agreed.
Thanks, Mary. Director comments. Okay, our next board meeting is October 28th at 6 p.m. And just as a reminder again, the firefighter picnic this Saturday, 11 to 3. It's under covered picnic area, so it doesn't matter if it rains. Do not get directions from Alan, but if you need directions, call us and we'll give them to you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh, Director Holbrook, were you going to stay on? You're super.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Okay. Everybody else, you're welcome to leave. Director Holbrook wanted to talk to us